Picture it. You're in the shower, minding your own business, when suddenly, out of nowhere, it hits you. That thing you said in class in 2014, the time you waved back at someone who wasn't waving at you, the moment you called your teacher mum in front of everyone. And instantly, your whole body reacts. Your face scrunches. Your shoulders curl inward. You make a noise like you're physically in pain. You might say no, 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 no at full volume, alone in your bathroom, about something that happened a decade ago. Sound familiar? Welcome to one of the most universal and least talked about experiences of being human. Your brain has a highlight reel. And unlike every other highlight reel you've ever seen, this one only plays the worst moments. On loop, without warning, at the most inconvenient times possible. So why does it do this? Why, out of the thousands of memories your brain has access to, does it keep reaching for the most embarrassing ones? Why can't it replay the time you nailed that presentation, or said exactly the right thing, or looked great in a photo? Why is it always the cringy stuff? The answer involves your amygdala, your ancestors, and a survival system so old it predates language. And once you understand it, the shower ambushes start to make a strange kind of sense. Here's the first thing to understand. Your brain is not treating your memories equally. Every experience you've ever had goes through a kind of priority filter before it gets stored. That filter has one job: decide how important this information is for your future survival. And the filter is heavily, deliberately biased. Negative events get flagged as more important than positive ones, almost every time, by a significant margin. This isn't a quirk or a flaw. It's the product of millions of years of selection pressure on what researchers call the negativity bias. The foundational logic is stark. A brain that remembered a rewarding experience and forgot a dangerous one was a brain that could get killed by the same threat twice. A brain that remembered the dangerous experience with more vividness, more weight, and more emotional charge was a brain that stayed alive. Over millions of years, the brains that survived were the ones that treated bad news as more important than good news. Your ancestors didn't need to remember the 30 times a berry was sweet. They needed to remember the one time a berry was poison. The asymmetry wasn't a bug, it was the entire system. So what does any of this have to do with cringe? Here's where it gets interesting. For most of your evolutionary history, the most dangerous category of negative experience wasn't physical injury. Physical threats were common, but they were often sudden and brief. The threat that mattered most, the one that could determine whether you survived, was social. Being rejected from your group, losing status, being seen as incompetent, untrustworthy, or embarrassing by the people you depended on. In a small ancestral community where your survival depended entirely on being accepted and useful to your group, social failure wasn't embarrassing in the way it is today. It was existential. A human alone, without their community, couldn't thermoregulate effectively, couldn't find food reliably, couldn't protect their offspring. Social exclusion was a path to death. Your brain, running the same ancient hardware it always has, still treats social failure this way. When you do something embarrassing, something that threatens how others perceive you, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, fires almost exactly as it would for a physical threat. The emotional charge on that memory gets amplified. It gets tagged as important. It gets stored with more durability and more sensory detail than the ordinary moments on either side of it. And then it gets reviewed. Neuroscientists studying memory consolidation have found that during sleep, the hippocampus replays emotionally significant experiences, running through them again while you're unconscious, consolidating them, embedding them more deeply. The more emotionally charged an event, the more likely it is to be replayed and reinforced during this process. Your brain is essentially deciding, while you sleep, which memories are important enough to be easily retrievable later. Guess which category wins? This is also why the memory of embarrassment doesn't fade the way ordinary memories do. Most memories blur over time. Details drop out. The emotional charge dissipates. But emotionally significant memories, especially those tagged with threat level signals, resist this fading. The mechanism that should be eroding the memory is partially overridden by the mechanism that flagged it as important in the first place. The brain keeps the file fresh because it keeps deciding the file might be needed. This is why the cringy memory is so vivid. Not just present, but detailed. You can often remember exactly where you were standing, what the light looked like, what you were wearing, the precise expression on the other person's face. This isn't bad luck. This is the amygdala, adding a kind of emphasis tag to the memory, modulating how it gets encoded so it comes back in full color. The neuroscientist Dr. Elizabeth Phelps, whose work on the amygdala and emotional memory has been central to this field, has shown that amygdala activity during emotional experiences directly predicts how well those experiences will be remembered later. The more activated your amygdala during an event, the more durably the event is stored, and the more accessible it remains over time. Your worst social moments got the full amygdala treatment. Your finest hours often didn't. Now here's the part that should make you feel slightly better and slightly worse at the same time. The moment that's been haunting you, almost no one else remembers it the way you do. Thomas Gilovich, a psychologist at Cornell University, has spent years studying what he calls the spotlight effect. The core finding is both simple and startling. We consistently, dramatically overestimate how much other people notice and remember our mistakes. In one of his studies, participants were asked to wear an embarrassing t-shirt into a room full of other participants. They predicted that roughly half the people in the room would notice the shirt. The actual number was closer to a quarter. Their subjective experience of standing out, of being seen, was almost double the reality. The reason is architectural. You are permanently anchored to your own perspective. You have full access to your own internal experience, the heat in your cheeks, the mental replay, the acute awareness of every detail of what just happened. You experience your embarrassing moment from the inside, with all of that weight and texture. Everyone else experienced it from the outside, briefly, while simultaneously managing their own internal worlds. They were thinking about themselves. They always are. They noticed you for a moment, filed it away with low priority, and moved on. Your brain didn't move on. Your brain got a threat level alert and opened a file it has been maintaining ever since. Here's another layer that makes the shower ambush specifically strange. The memory doesn't arrive when you're thinking about it. It arrives unbidden, without warning, while you're doing something completely unrelated. This is what memory researchers call an involuntary autobiographical memory, a memory that bypasses your conscious intention and surfaces on its own. Dorothy Bernson, a memory researcher at Aarhus University who has studied these spontaneous memories extensively, found that involuntary autobiographical memories are actually extremely common in everyday life, often triggered by sensory cues, random words, or loose associations in the environment. The smell of a particular soap, a song, a word someone used, something in your peripheral vision. Any of these can act as a retrieval cue that bypasses the normal voluntary memory pathways and pulls a stored experience directly into consciousness. The more emotionally charged the stored memory, the more trigger pathways lead back to it. The cringiest memories have the most routes back, because your brain built the most infrastructure around them. Bernson's research also found something that reframes how we tend to think about these intrusive moments. Involuntary memories aren't random misfires. They're a natural part of how memory works. Your memory system isn't a library you only enter when you decide to. It's a system that's always running in the background, always making connections, always surfacing material it considers relevant to your current state. The embarrassing memory arrives uninvited because your memory system decided it was related to something happening right now, even if you can't immediately see the connection. Your brain is doing its job. It's just a job that was designed for different stakes than shower thoughts. So the shower gets you because it's sensory and warm and slightly disorienting, and because in that unguarded, unstimulated state, Your brain is free associating, and somewhere in that chain of associations is a thread that leads directly to the incident. And the thread is easy to follow because your brain spent years making it thick. There's one more thing worth knowing. The fact that you're still replaying these memories says something about you that isn't what you think it says. You might assume that the cringe means you care too much about what people think, or that you're unusually sensitive, or that you're stuck in the past in some unhealthy way. What it actually means is that you have a social brain that is functioning as designed. Healthy social awareness depends on this system. The ability to feel embarrassment, to replay social missteps, to analyze what went wrong and how to do better, is the same ability that allows you to navigate relationships, maintain a reputation, understand how your behavior lands on other people. People who cannot feel social pain in this way, who are genuinely unbothered by their impact on others, tend to show measurable deficits in social functioning. The discomfort you feel is not a sign of social failure. It is a sign of social intelligence, running its standard maintenance cycle. Your brain won't let you forget that cringy moment because your brain believes it might matter one day. It believes it might hold a lesson worth keeping. It believes that you, specifically, need to know what happened so you don't repeat it in a group where your acceptance matters. It's wrong about the urgency. It's wrong about how much anyone else is thinking about it. But it's not wrong that social awareness is worth maintaining. It just doesn't know the difference between your survival, depending on your reputation in a 40-person ancestral community, and you tripping over your words in front of a coworker who forgot about it before lunch. So next time the memory arrives, uninvited, in the shower, you can tell your amygdala, "Thank you for the threat assessment." You can note the file has been reviewed again, and you can choose not to watch the whole reel from the beginning. The moment was real. Your brain's response to it makes complete sense, and absolutely no one else has been thinking about it anywhere near as much as you have.